the early days of the corruption's outbreak among the hunters of Louisiana, there had always existed an unwritten rule. Its origin, though uncertain, even mythical, was well established, understood, and even feared within the circles of both the righteous, the rapacious, and the vindictive. Though seemingly disorganized and catastrophic, the bayous, saturated with death, decay, and destruction, still held both life, restoration, and creation. A fragile but established balance of give and take, a mirrored existence of yin and yang between the merging of the two realms. It would almost seem that in between these converging layers of our reality and the realm of the sculptor, on the very edge of the blade that balances both order and chaos, existed a certain set of rules. Rules that had to be obeyed, lest one would descend into an abyss of madness. One of those rules was the Oath of Two. Ever since the hunters ventured into Louisiana to fight off the sculptor's influence in our realm, the Oath of Two was well known within the community. If inoculated and thus protected against the decaying touch of darkness, two hunters could enter the dead zone together, and potentially, if all things went according to plan, two hunters could return, both of them unmarked, free to continue their way of life. However, this fragile force of order would be subject to a disturbance disrupted by the selfish actions of three brothers. Although their names remain uncertain to us in the present, the three brothers were infamous in their time, their names recognized by almost every hunter alive in one way or another. The brothers were the first hunters to break the Oath of Two and venture into the hunting grounds as a group of three. And to no surprise, with their superior numbers, they quickly became successful. Contract after contract, the three secured plenty of fruitful bounties, gaining them both money, reputation, and a great amount of enemies in the process. Interestingly enough, though other hunters frowned upon the advantage that the brothers had of being free, seeing it as unfair, no one dared to follow in their footsteps. The rumors and superstition alone were more than enough to deter anyone from breaking the oath. As the brothers greedily continued their rampage through the bayous, they became more and more feared and more wealthy. So much so that they obtained an excess amount of money, more money than they knew what to do with. This resulted in the youngest of the brothers buying a new horse, which he painted green from top to toe. Not very subtle, he did, however, do it as he thought it would bring him luck. But unbeknownst to him and his two brothers, their luck was about to run out. One morning, before venturing out into the bayous, the two brothers would find the youngest one missing. He wouldn't stay missing for long though, as lingering on the edge of the tree line, not far from the encampment, a dark silhouette loomed with an ominous presence. As they approached, they saw the green horse dead on the ground, torn apart by forces that seemed unnatural. Though most of the horse seemed untouched, almost unscathed, it was nothing but a bag of skin. Its midsection had been viciously torn open, the inner organs pulled out, and the horse itself strangled with its own intestines. With bloodstains covering its green skin, it looked like what one of the hunters traveling with the brothers referred to as the devil's Christmas tree. On the back of the creature, tied to its body with the remaining intestines, was the youngest brother. Almost past the point of being recognizable, every digit and limb of his body had been broken, bent, and twisted in the wrong direction, covered in 1,000 deep cuts. The only parts of the body that weren't touched by either wounds or gashes had been beaten black and blue. Where his face had once been, hung now only a few chunks of meat, the rest torn off with such brute force it seemed to have broken his jaw in the process. While the companions of the brothers were disturbed at the horrible sight, the two brothers seemed more distraught about the loss of their brother's rifle than the brother himself. The two buried their younger sibling and spoke no more on the matter. To the people around them, it was quite apparent that they were slowly losing their minds. However, even with the youngest brother gone, the two older brothers would still carry on hunting in a trio. They would find substitute for the youngest wherever they could, always bringing a third wherever they would travel. Yet this third hunter would always perish in one way or another. From town to town, going through partner after partner, the two brothers went through an unheard amount of bounties and bodies. Their exploits became common knowledge, and it didn't take long for the taste for violence and death to gain them such infamy that rumors of immortality started to circulate them. But though the brothers seemed impossible to kill, the third hunter accompanying them would always die. The brothers became isolated. Not many dared to come near them, neither enemies nor friends. People feared that this curse they had brought upon themselves affected the ones closest to them. The brothers would grow manic, insane, their obsession for twisted violence relentless. Through the recollections of Thomas Bridge, an associate of the brothers who also went by the name of the Mountain Man, we learned that he would help them recruit new partners for their trios. However, it would seem that the third partner came to pass in more and more horrendous ways. Vicious mutilations, violent tortures. Again and again the newly recruited would find themselves massacred in unspeakable ways that seemed off. Thomas grew suspicious, but the rewards of riches and alcohol the brothers would supply him kept him from asking questions. That was, however, until he one day went to visit the two brothers in their residence. Within their living room, Thomas found the two sitting among corpses stockpiled from floor to ceiling. The sight was appalling, the smell even more so. Heads, torsos, arms and legs all piled up in clumsy clusters, bodies upon bodies stacked on top of one another, all of them former companions, all of them people Thomas recognized. And though he almost lost his mind at the sight alone, the two brothers seemed unfazed, casually conversing about this and that in the middle of this cesspool of limbs and body parts. The brothers revealed they were the ones who had murdered their youngest sibling. The despicable murder and the horrendous mutilation had been done in ritualistic fashion with the intention of breaking the curse. Somehow, they had found out that the only reason they were still alive was because their third partner kept dying, a sacrifice they were willing to make the cycle continue, so they could carry on with their killings and expeditions. Devastated that he had helped these maniacal psychopaths sacrifice so many people, Thomas slowly lost his sanity, questioning whether he had gone mad or completely lost his soul to humanity in the process. He left the two brothers and headed for New Orleans by himself. And according to Thomas's last account, the two brothers went back into the bayous, always bringing a third partner, making sure to keep the curse fed and to keep the risk of death at bay. Though the ultimate conclusion is uncertain, it is certain that whatever the three brothers unleashed took out its full wrath on them. The curse caused them to mutilate one of their own family members and drove the remaining two mad. However, after the long stretch of insanity and madness following the breaking of the oath, hunters were able to travel in packs of three, moving in and out of the dead zone as they saw fit, without anyone receiving the mark of the curse. One can't help but wonder why. Did the curse vanish? Was its spell broken? Or could it be that the two brothers, continuously sacrificing their newly acquired partners, simply allowed other hunters to operate in groups of three, while the curse followed the brothers like a shadow of death? Similarly, where the oath and curse came from also remains a mystery. It would seem that most accredit the curse to the sculptor. However, though the sculptor seemed capable of manipulating the physical reality of our realm, it isn't apparent that the entity possessed the ability to inflict curses. Perhaps it was the influence of another force or entity that somehow dictated the order and structure between the chaos of the merging realms. Or maybe it was the remnants of a sacred vow taken by the American Hunters Association, seeing that the oath was most likely part of the blood ritual, the initiation of the hunters. Unfortunately, we find ourselves at the end of the rope, and it would seem that the origin and reason of both the oath and the curse has been lost to time. For that very reason, most of the questions we still hold in our thoughts will most likely remain unanswered until the end of time. Hey there, Hazmat here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It never ceases to amaze me just how deep the lore of Showdown actually goes. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the VIPs, Corvo Bearslayer, Derivative, Doc Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jiminel Bob, Corey Peterson, Hyde, Slip, Stasby Aztec, Sunrise Phoenix, and the Wizard of Copper. And of course, a big thanks to all the regulars as well. If you want to support me directly as a content creator, consider signing up as a member of the Hunters Lounge for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the description below. And thank you all for watching. Happy hunting.